What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and we are talking about Bitcoin today, BTC USD. Hit that like button, subscribe. Thank you all for being here. It is the 12th day of March. Here we are, moving right along this month. $70,400 is the price, 11 hours, 36 minutes left in the day. Again, hit that like button. Thank you all for being here. The assumption is and has been that we're going to continue to move up. As long as we're above 66K, I don't really see a problem with that. Now, there was a moment where, when we found some resistance here, there was a moment where I was thinking we could come down a little bit lower. But again, the lowest that I was really expecting myself, the lowest that I personally was expecting that Bitcoin would go, was somewhere in this 0.5 to 382 range, right? I remember back here on the 10th of March saying that I think before we come up here, we probably find support somewhere in this zone. We addressed the scenarios of going down here, we addressed the scenarios of going lower, but I said the most likely scenario was that we'd come down here and then we would come up here, maybe we come back down and then we go up. But I do think we're on a path above this high. We've got a lot of proving to do, but what's interesting, and the reason why I was confident that we'd find resistance in this area, is if we look at this on the 4-hour time frame. Again, we've talked about this at length multiple times a week for like the past 2 weeks now. Throughout this whole range, right? This whole range, the behavior of this range is very consistent in regards to the RSI. Okay, all the tops have been here, right? Like right there, even right there, right here, relatively speaking, right here. All the bottoms have been right here. It's like the same thing, but in reverse to the downside, right? Between the 60 and the overbought zone, even in the overbought zone, between the 35, I should say, the 65, the 35, and the oversold zone itself. All of these have been significant little pivot points. Now, was that the absolute low? No, you still went a little bit lower. You formed some bullish divergence. As soon as you got overbought here, was that the absolute high? No, it was a little bit higher, but again, tomato, whatever, insignificant amounts. You were at the relative highs, at the relative lows, and it's the same throughout this whole thing. This is a relative high, but we're doing something different, I think, than any other of these relative highs that we've seen so far, or at the very least something maybe that is similar to these relative highs back here, where we didn't just crash down and get oversold. We actually came down and found support at the 50 and consolidated and looked constructive. And what did? We built higher. And I think that's what we're going to see here. Not to toot my own horn, I remember even comparing what we were going to do here with something in this range here. I remember comparing it to that. I think as early as the 9th, as early as like these lows. I had a dry streak for a little while there, guys, but we've been actually pretty spot on accurate, I think, since these highs. Which isn't much, right? That's just a hot streak for what, the last 7 days, but that's nice. It's been a good week. And I think realizing that we're range bound gives us a little bit of an advantage, right? A lot of people are expecting, and they're using the media, man, they're using the sentiment to justify their explanations. That's how you know that you're going down the wrong path. We're clearly range bound. And a lot of people think we're about to do this or do this, but you know what I'm about to say. It's most likely that we are going to do this, right? We're going to do this, guys, until May, if not June, if not July, right? My expectation is kind of like this, actually. What I think is going to happen is I think that either by the end of May, which is all the way over here, or sometime in June, right? It might be the very beginning of June, it might be the end of June, but sometime in like mid-June to late May, somewhere in this kind of time frame, I think we will be lingering at the upper side, and then slowly but surely we'll come back down. We'll still be in this range. We should, in May or June, see some decline begin. That doesn't mean that we're breaking below this low. I think we get below this low in June, July, and maybe even as late as August, but I am expecting that the bear market low, the bear cycle low, will be just below these lows, probably around 50K, just above or just below, and we'll find the lows in August. I didn't mean to go on this path of thought, but just as a point of reference as far as what I'm expecting for months here. And we can go over why, again, I expect it to be for months. but I want to make this part quick, so I want to get into the short-term stuff, okay? Because we've been rocking on the short-term stuff lately. The 2-week time frame, I think, is overlooked in a lot of cases. I don't hear a lot of people talk about the 2-week time frame. We can look at the weekly, we can look at the monthly. There are a lot of details that we can derive this exact same message here, but I think it looks, I think it looks the most obvious on the 2-week time frame. We're going to use the all-time history. Right, it's very, very simple. It's kind of like the same thing as the 4-hour. Here's where you found your support every time. Here's where you found your resistance every time, right? And we're clearly at the areas of support. But when we find support, we don't just move through the stratosphere. When you're at your bear market lows, you don't just move through the stratosphere every single time. And we can circle. Actually, technically, we don't even have this 2-week closed yet, but in 3 days, 12 hours, we will. We can circle all these little focal points here. I think we could even circle this one and see that right here we did have a bounce initially. I've made the argument that I don't think this was a bear market here. I actually don't think this is a bear market. I think me and everybody who's ever called this a bear market was wrong. I think this was one giant cycle. And the reason why we had one giant cycle is maybe for a few reasons, but a couple reasons that stand out to me is early days, very early days. Bitcoin's first being appreciated for what it is. Retail is really the only thing pushing it up. Not a whole lot of institutional involvement, theoretically. Unless you're one of the people that believes that the institutions are the ones that created Bitcoin, or like people like Jeffrey Epstein, same thing. Anyways, right, you think Jeffrey Epstein just was involved with celebrities and political figures? Institutional people too, absolutely. The ones that are in charge of the money. Isn't it interesting how out of all the files, there's no mention of anybody who's in charge of, it's not that there's no mention, but there's really not much talked about people who are in charge of like major financial institutions, as if that's the one sector in the world that he just didn't focus on, right? Celebrities and politicians. So that's the only things he focused on. There's no power in the people who create and operate these institutions. Anyways, that's a whole different rabbit hole. And also no having. Early days of no having. That's why I think this was all just one cycle. But nonetheless, we still found support here. And what did we do? We really just moved sideways for a long time. We found immediate support, but then you moved sideways from January to July for 6 months. You moved sideways, okay? That's the important part to take out of all of this, okay? Here, when you found support, this was in January of 2015. You moved sideways, really, until October of 2015. For 8 months, you moved sideways. A bang. You finished the bear market with a bang and a whimper. A bang here and a whimper. It's a smaller whimper, but still, from December until April for 4 months, you moved sideways, and then you finally moved up. Last cycle, from here, was it the absolute low? No, for the first time it wasn't. And this is what gives me the premise that we're actually going to see lower lows, I think. A bang and a whimper. This is from June, and we started to move up in January. 6 months. Okay? On this 2-week scale, we're only on the second bar. We've got more time. We're going to consolidate for longer. It's been since February that we've been down here. It's the middle of March. Month and a half. The smallest time frame we saw was 4 months. The largest time frame we saw was 8 months that we moved sideways. Okay? I think it will be several months that we move sideways here, because again, that's what we've done every single time we've had these readings. Every single time. And you can also deduce those same facts from the stochastics as well, and even from the MACD. And it's not just on the 2-week time frame. I just think it looks the prettiest, the most presentable on the 2-week time frame. But now that we've got that out of the way, and again, that we understand that we are going to be range bound, clearly, since this range began, which was early February, right, which was over here, right, it's February 6th, February 5th, since this range really began and was established after we saw our initial volatility, we've been moving sideways. We have been range bound, and this range has provided some rules. Support, 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 resistance, 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 resistance. Nothing crazy to the downside, nothing crazy to the upside. The only thing that's happened that's crazy throughout this whole range is your emotional capacity and that of the emotions of everybody in the crypto space calling for this, calling for that, when really it's just the same thing, right? And until we do something that is magnificent, I'm going to maintain that same stance. Like clockwork, and I made this assumption while we were at the lows, once we get above this high, all this talk of Iran conflict this, Iran conflict that, World War III, it's going to be terrible for the economy, it goes away entirely. And then there will be a spin even on how it's a good thing. Or there's going to be some other narrative that comes out that makes this Iran conflict thing seem irrelevant. And then whenever we're at the lows again, there's going to be something bad, right? Like it's just our emotions are the only thing that we're really going off of here. The narratives that are given us, that are given to us, are the only things that people are going off of here because we're bored. We're moving sideways. There's nothing from the price perspective, right? We're just doing the same stuff. Anyways, I do think that we're going to go higher. Sure, we'll move sideways. We moved sideways here. We still saw higher highs. We didn't see lower lows the whole time. We've moved sideways before, and we have seen lower lows, and we still broke out to the upside. We've seen sideways before where we saw higher lows and we still broke out to the downside. Typically, actually, when you consolidate to the upside, you do expect to break out to the downside. It's not a guarantee, but it's like I think 60% of the time. And I do believe that we will have more to go. My thoughts are we will slowly work our way up here, and we'll be at our highest points in May and June. We'll probably be at our highest points then. That way, whenever the drop happens, the finale of the market happens, it can seem like it's intense because it's happening from a higher place when really we didn't go anywhere. And then it'll seem like it's intense because we've been bored for so long, we forget what intense looks like. And then we're dropping faster, so it seems intense. We're getting below these lows, it seems really intense. People are freaking out, we're going to go below 50K, and it never comes. And that's the end of the bear market. It's kind of reminiscent of exactly what happened during the last bear cycle. It's not really an original thought. Maybe it doesn't happen like that at all, but that's what I'm running with so far. And we are nowhere close, in my perspective, the way that I have it drawn here. This is before April. This is faster than anticipated. We're not even a quarter of the way through with this consolidation phase, not in my opinion. But we'll see. And just because we're not a quarter of the way through doesn't mean that we can't get above these highs. Doesn't mean that we can't go below these lows. We could, at some point in April, even see a lower low. We could, and not be breaking out. I don't think that we're going to really break out. We could, at some point this month, see a higher high, and that doesn't mean that we're breaking out. That's the whole point. Every pump gets dumped into, every dump gets pumped into. That's what I've been saying, and that's what I will continue to say until I feel like there's a time where it's more obvious that we are going to break out. And I just don't think that time's now. I want to look at the 1 hour time frame. That was a hell of an introduction. I just want to get to the short-term stuff. Because I'm sure I will say all of those words that I've said up to this point. I will say all of that probably continuously for the weeks and months ahead. 1 hour time frame here. Lower lows in the RSI. Lower highs in the RSI. But you have kind of broken out of that trend there, right? You kind of actually just did break out of that. That's nice to see. Found support at the 40 area, finding resistance at the 60. That's fine. A lot of volume, actually. Like consistent volume here. I really do think that we're going to see a shift up. I think that between now and the end of next week, we are going to see a little shift to the upside in the markets. The X.com is so depressed. Shout out to Tyler Durden. He's not depressed. He's funny, man. I like Tyler. If you're not following Tyler, he's pretty funny. This, by the way, I thought that was kind of interesting. They're saying that the Terminator is the prequel to the Matrix. Never heard that before in all my years. I've never heard that, but it kind of makes sense actually. And the way that the way that she relates it to Christianity, even, it's pretty interesting, right? The people who made this are clearly philosophizers of life. Anyways, X is just depressed, you guys. Whenever it comes to crypto, X is literally depressed. Everybody's depressed. It's all negative. It's not good stuff. Crypto's dead. All this stuff. Even in the stock market, people are depressed, right? They're saying that the stock market's about to crash. I read Kalshi's post yesterday that said that we're seeing more shorts now than we even did in 2022 for the stock market. There's more volume in shorts. It makes me think whenever we're all depressed, we've got these high levels of fear, we're clearly not thinking rationally. We're letting the narrative, and not that, sorry, I shouldn't say the narrative. The narrative is a very integral part of any, I think, cycle and the heading of price, but we're letting our emotions dictate our decisions, and that's not good. That's just not good. It's not the way to be. You're in trouble if you're doing that. The MACD here, getting away from all that though, it looks inconsistent but bullish right here at least. Inconsistent, so don't get your hopes too high, but bullish right here. The stochastics also on the 1 hour time frame do look bullish, and the RSI is neutral, but we could be turning a bullish leg because we are breaking out of this downtrend before even getting oversold. That's good. That's a good thing. 4 hour time frame here, we rejected the overbought zone. We've been finding resistance here consistently, but we kind of did that here, found support at the 50, and what do? We moved up. Well, we're finding support at the 50 now. I don't like that we've done this twice. I'd prefer it if we don't do it again or again, right? I prefer that. I would prefer that we just move up. Who cares what I prefer? That doesn't mean it happens, but ideally when we move up, we'd also see a higher reading. We want a higher high, not a lower high. We want, when we move up, we want to not reject the overbought zone specifically, but get into it. Rejecting the overbought zone would be much worse than getting into it and giving us a lower high. But at the end of the day, resistance up here is probably to be expected, and that will be the likely next topping point. We would get overbought if we saw a move up, and it wouldn't take much. Wouldn't it be crazy? Not so crazy at all. If we got a slightly higher high, we get overbought, and then that's the high, just like it was every single time since we've been in this range, right? Everybody gets super excited, just like they did back here, just like they did back here, just like they did back here. All the talks of the bear market being over, and then they're very quiet once we're on the way down. And we'll probably break through some structure, we'll come back down, or it'll seem like we're breaking through structure, but really, we got the lower low, but really we're just moving sideways again, guys. We're in the same range that we've been and will be likely for months. The stochastics on the 4 hour are a bit odd. They're shifted upwards, which is nice. That is nice. But they are a bit odd. I like the RSI. I think it's bullish. I don't know how to feel about the stochastics, so I'll just leave that there. The MACD looks bullish, though. We're building some bullish momentum here. This is a good place to bounce. We'll see, right? Typically, whenever you cross above the zero, you chill, you come back to the zero, or you do something like this, and then on your next expansive phase there, that's whenever the next leg starts to happen. And typically, this next leg will be bigger than the first leg, typically. With that thought in mind, I mean, yeah, we probably go above 75K. Probably. That'd be my guess. That doesn't mean we will, but I guess I'm making that call. Yeah, I think we do go above 75K. At the very least, I believe we go above this high. We look at this on a daily time frame. The RSI is perfect on the daily time frame. Very methodical, very tenacious. Consistent is the word that I'd like to use. Very consistent. We'll probably come up here, find resistance, get overbought, whatever, and then we'll really start to correct. I think April will start off with a little bit of downside. April might look like it's going to be a bad month, but then we probably finish it with a bang. We probably finish on a good note. But going into the end of March, I am expecting more or less productive behavior. All of this is not going to happen at once, right? When I talk about moving up, we're going above 75K. That's not going to be today. We'd be lucky if it happened 7 days from now, I think, right? It's going to be a slow, methodical movement upwards. And I mean, maybe it happens between today and the end of this week, maybe. But it's Thursday, we've got the weekend upon us. Not a whole lot of stuff goes on during the weekend. I would think sometime next week is whenever we get above this high. We pull back, we consolidate, and then we have maybe a nice little finish to the end of the month, something like that. And then April might start off a little bit upside, or it might start off just with a whimper to the downside, and we'll probably just return to the mean of this range overall. Every pump gets dumped into, every dump will get pumped into. The MACD is coming right up to the zero line here, and this daily MACD has actually been pretty reliable. Something that I think a lot of people have missed. I missed it up until recently. We've noticed this little trend here with the oscillators. You can see finding support and resistance. Well, I guess really just primarily resistance on this line. We'll probably go up here and find resistance. And that actually might not even be the very end of March, but just like the last week or two of March, right? Where we'd find resistance, which would be at the high point. We'd get overbought, or to this point of rejection on the daily RSI. We'd get overbought on the stochastics. All points of resistance at which we might find a relative high point. And then on top of that, these prior areas of support here, we get just above this high, and we're going to be finding resistance at these prior areas of support. I don't know if we go as high as 77K right now. I think 77 to 80K, that's probably going to be the highest price that we see of this overall range, and that, again, will probably be reserved for May or June. There is a scenario where we go above this high, and then in April, we come down, and we even see prices that are below this low, and yet we still work our way back up, and then by the end of May, or by the middle of May, or sometime in June, we're actually at higher prices. We can see some volatility. Just because it's sideways and boring doesn't mean that it can't excite you or scare you at times, right? I don't know if I'm expecting a lower low personally, not at this point anymore, but time will tell. I don't really have anything else to say. I think that things make sense, right? It all looks like we're postured in a way that we're going to continue to move up, but nothing too crazy. And we likely do find resistance at these key points on the stochastics, on the MACD, and on the RSI that we've consistently been finding resistance at, not just here, but throughout this whole kind of downtrend. Hit that like button, subscribe. Thank you all for being here. Maybe 76.7K. That might be the highest that I could see us going from here right now. And not throughout this whole range, again, throughout this whole process. I think that we can make our way up to this area here. Maybe we do go just above 80K. Maybe. I don't want to make that call, but 81.2 to 84.1, that is an area that is our golden ratio zone. I definitely don't feel confident that we'd go above 85K. I definitely don't feel confident that we'd go above here. But last cycle, during these bearish consolidation phases, we actually did not interact with the lows of the prior consolidation phases. We got very, very close, but we just missed them every single time. So that's what I'm sticking with. Anyways, hit that like button, subscribe. Thank you all. Take care. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.